when I'm not responding to unsolicited political text messages with links to Emeryld Ryders playlists, I like to answer questions that I get on YouTube, so let's get to it. Dude, how are you canceling the string noise? Awesome sound mixing. Thank you. Really, there's no sound mixing for most of these videos. It's just one kind of microphone that gets the amp over here. It's usually the Fender Deluxe reissue. And then the mic is maybe like 2 feet from me, just off the camera frame. Yeah, a lot of it is just in the hands, really. So I'm going to rock out this D'Angelico DC Mini. And we're going to talk about a couple things that will cause string noise, how you can maybe cut it back. First, we're going to talk about fingerstyle. All right, because that was how I was playing in the video that this question was asked. So let's take a major 7-chord voicing, which is always welcome, right? Come on, you kidding me? Please. Doesn't get any better than that. Neck pickup on a D'Angelico. So my root note is the A on the low E string, 5th fret. I'm skipping the A string, which we're going to talk about in a second. Ring finger and pinky are on 6 D and G. Middle finger is 5 B, and that's it. So the way that I'm playing fingerstyle, and this is really kind of like a technique, I guess, that really lends itself to guitar playing, I think. Because so much of the chords that you will encounter are rooted on either the low E or the A strings, where that's going to be the bass note, okay? So I'm using my thumb to hit the E string, then pointer, middle, ring, D, G, and B, okay? So now, there's really very little string noise because this is a closed chord voicing, which is something that you should totally get into no matter if you're just starting out and playing for a while. As soon as you can start cutting out the notes that are just being left open, you'll really be able to clean up your playing. And I'm not like the most proficient, cleanest player in the world by any means, but I definitely think that my playing kind of got tighter once I started almost exclusively using closed voicings instead of the same chord, like the A major 7 chord up here, right here, is great. But I have totally lost control of the sound of the strings because that high E string and that low A string are vibrating really beyond my control at this point, all right? So when I play that same thing down here, what you'll notice is my pointer finger is touching, it's overlapping the A string. So I'm pressing down on the 5th fret, but it's also touching the A string in a way that I'm not hearing an open string vibrating, right? And also, on the high E string, the other part of my pointer finger is right there. So you can kind of see that it's like at an angle, right? It's not a bar chord, but I am touching all the strings with my pointer finger. So you're not hearing any excess string noise, okay? Now, if I were to root something on the A string, maybe like a D major 7, so 5A, 7D, 6G, 7B, right? I'm doing the same thing with my fingers, just in the middle 4 strings. My pointer finger is still muting the high E string, and you'll see that I'm not coming straight down on that. Because I want to lay my finger across the strings to kind of cut out some of that noise, the very tip, the fingertip of my pointer finger is nudging up against the low E string. So if it wasn't there, it could sound like this, right? And again, most often those open strings, specifically like the low E string, that big, the thickest string in your guitar, is going to overpower the sound of your fretted notes. So if you can get your pointer finger to maybe get in the habit of butting up against that low E string when you're rooting something on the A string. It doesn't always have to be your pointer finger. Maybe it's, you know, maybe it's some kind of voicing like this, where your middle finger is. But just point up, like just nudge up against it. And sometimes you'll hit like a harmonic, right? Which is like, oh, maybe that's not what I want. Maybe it is what you want. And don't worry about it, because in the context of the chord, I'm not hearing that harmonic even, right? So all those are just little things that you can do to kind of clean up the sound of your string noise, okay? Now, same kind of deal with the pick, right? One thing that I do all the time is I'm rarely playing something wide open, right? A lot of times, if you see the way that I'm playing, see the way a lot of people play, and again, there are other schools of thought on this. It's not like this is the only way to clean up your string noise. One way to clean up your string noise is just to practice a lot and only ever hit the string you're going for. But we're skipping that step completely, right? That's out of the question. We don't need to know that. But I'll kind of palm mute a lot of the stuff whenever I'm playing with a pick. So most of the time when I'm playing with a pick, generally my palm is going to be just over the bridge. So there will always be some level of palm muting, which is, again, just your picking hand's way of kind of muting the strings. And that stuff, even if you're not palm muting like this, right? That's a wide open just power chord on A. You'll notice that my pinky, or whatever, ring finger, however you're playing the fifth of that A power chord, is still cutting down and muting the strings below it. So even when I'm not palm muting, I'm not going to get any excess string noise palm muting because my palm is just simply refusing to let those strings vibrate, right? Just by sticking it right there on the bridge. But my other fingers are really kind of helping, even if they're not in the game, to really silence the strings that I don't want to hear. Now, another reason that your strings might be making noise is because it's time to change your strings. More specifically on acoustic guitar strings, acoustic guitars, the non-coded strings are going to have a sound like this sound right here, right? Just amplified times a million. And some people kind of think that's charming, and they like the sound of maybe like uncoded guitar strings switching and that squeak in between chords. I personally don't like that sound. Again, that's just a taste. So I only use coded strings. I generally use like Elixir 12 gauge strings on most of my acoustic guitars. And the Elixir coded strings really kind of help mediate some of that string noise. There's still going to be the sound of, you know, your hand changing going across a string, but it's not so bad. So there's just a couple different tips that you can use to clean up your string noise. And speaking of fingerstyle playing, I did a whole masterclass on this with my buddy Kyle, who's a legit professor of fingerstyle guitar. And for the next 5 days, I'm making it on super sale, so check that out in the link below. What we really need is more impromptu stuff, like that sweet roadie cover from yesterday's stream. Yeah, so to end one of the live streams earlier, somebody requested a Tenacious D song, so I tried playing roadie for the first time ever, just reading it off Ultimate Guitar, and I really got into it, and I felt the spirit of the D invade my body. Do what you will with that. But one more reason just to turn your notifications on, because I have no idea when I'm going live. It's always spur of the moment, but I'm definitely trying to make a point to go live at least once a week, whether it's by myself or with Andrea, like the other day. And I think it was a lot of fun. So make sure your notifications are on, because that's the only way people will notify you, or YouTube will notify you, when the live madness begins. Do you have a song that you tune your guitar with? This is an excellent question, and the answer is yes. So back in the day, before I had a guitar tuner in my phone at all times, or a snark tuner or whatever, I always was like, how do I tune this? Because my ear kind of sucks. It's okay, it's better now, but it definitely sucked back in the day. And what I ended up doing was I took the Beck song Devil's Haircut, right? And that was like the song that I used to tune my guitar, right? It's super easy. It's just like, just to kind of like hear E-A-D. The funny thing about that is, and I recommend everybody have a song that like that, where you can reference a tone, no matter, you know, how out of tune your guitar is. You can tune one note to that, and then once you get one note in tune, you can tune the other notes or other strings to that. The funny thing about Devil's Haircut by Beck, it's actually not E-A-D. I think it's tuned a step down, right? So really it's D-D-G-C, but I changed how I hear that song in my mind as if it were in standard tuning, and that's how I used to tune my guitar. So the funny thing about that is I was never able to listen to the song again. I never ever listened to that song because I knew it would screw up my poor ear. And then like I would start mistuning my guitar, probably somewhere between how I had changed my memory of it in standard tuning to what it actually is, which I think is down a step. I'm not even actually sure if it is down a full step, but I can't risk listening to it now, so this is how it is. Music theory sucks and is completely unnecessary. How many successful rock bands have made millions of dollars and had sold out shows without knowing anything about stupid music theory? It's a waste of time. Says the guy who was watching a YouTube video on how to learn music theory. It's one of those like great salty comments where like, you know, the guy had good intentions going, and he's like, you know what, I really want to learn something. And then maybe he started watching a video, and for whatever reason, part of it was just over his head. So instead of maybe just slowing down and trying to go to like maybe a more beginner level, he just gets upset and then blames me and all of music theory in general as being a pointless waste of time and nonsense, just because his own fragile ego and intelligence has been assaulted by trying to learn something new. So don't be that guy. Everyone is entitled to his or her opinion. Yours just happens to be wrong. Love me some Ray LaMontagne, but Dolly is, was, and always will be the queen. So this was on the cover I did last year. It was called Jolene, the better one, where me and my student Hannah played one of my favorite songs of all time, Jolene, by Ray LaMontagne. Which again, most people hear Jolene and they think of Dolly Parton, which is a fantastic song, and I love Dolly Parton. Sign me up for Team Dolly all day, all night. But I gotta say, I prefer the Ray LaMontagne Jolene, so let me know which one you think is the superior Jolene, because for the people who have heard both of them, I gotta say, I think that Ray's is the superior Jolene, but for the people who are just blindly saying, oh, the Dolly one is better just because you're more familiar with that one, take a look in the mirror, my friend, and then come back after you hear the Ray LaMontagne one. Such a practical lesson. Thanks. Also, Lakers in 6. So this was my lesson last week where I was rocking my Portland Trailblazers NBA gear. I'm from Chicago, so I'm a Bulls fan, but I love Dame, and I just love the league in general, so I'll rep pretty much any team's brand, with a few exceptions. So this is probably a good time as any to give you my top 5 NBA players list, which evolves every year. Number 1 will always be Jimmy Butler until he retires. I'm a huge Jimmy Butler fan. He's the man. I was not surprised at all to find out that he had somehow gotten exquisite luxury coffee machines in his Orlando hotel bubble room and is selling super high-priced coffee to other NBA players, etc. It's fantastic. Jimmy Butler, always number 1. Dame has climbed the levels. He's number 2 right now. Love Lillard. He's just the man. Total badass. Number 3 is Ricky Rubio. I will always be a Ricky Rubio truther and will hold out hope that someday he'll get the shine that he deserves. Yeah, I just will never be able to quit Ricky Rubio, no matter how long it takes me. Even before he was in the league and he really stuck it to Team USA in the Olympics, it was love at first sight with me and Ricky Rubio. Number 4 is probably Steven Adams. If you want a good read, if you want to call it like an autobiography, it's like a self-written, I don't know if it's really a memoir. It's just a book that Steven Adams wrote that is super interesting about kind of his life. Highly recommend it. Hilarious. And number 5, I have to put Chris Paul on here, even though I have a love-hate relationship with Chris Paul. I think he's probably one of the most annoying players in NBA history, but he's also, like, I've never seen a point guard play the game any better. I feel like I learn stuff from watching Chris Paul all the time. But again, sometimes his antics are a little hard to handle and he just complains all the time. So yeah, Butler, Dame. Also, Dame is like the only player I wear his shoes aside from Kobe, since, it's kind of hard to find Kobe's now. Sadly, I'm still not prepared to talk about that. Butler, Dame, Rubio, Steven Adams, and begrudgingly, Chris Paul. I liked Ladies from the 80s if it means anything. It doesn't. This is how my video from last week where I was talking about my biggest failures. And sadly, Ladies from the 80s not being the summer anthem that I had anticipated, was kind of a disappointment. But the legend of Ladies from the 80s lives on, and make sure you check that out if you haven't yet. It's essentially my channel trailer, probably now to the end of time, so you'll have ample opportunity to see it. Listening homework this week, I'm going to throw you to a band called Crumb. The song is called Ghost Ride. Great song. I've been jamming to this whole album all week. And this is actually, I found this on a Spotify playlist. You know how, like, if you have Spotify and you're playing a song and then afterwards it'll just automatically populate what you're listening to. I think I was listening to Tame Impala and this came up and I was like, wow, this is great. I gotta say, the Spotify algorithm really does a great job of finding stuff that you might be interested in. And this is definitely not the first listening homework that I've culled from that, even if they are probably like an evil company that is terrible for musicians in general. They really have that algorithm down quite nicely. So check that out. If you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, Twitter, or the website. Go to my Patreon, where I'm just about to upload some more videos, probably tonight or tomorrow, because I've got like the never-ending intermediate to beginner to intermediate class. That'd be pretty bad if it was intermediate to beginner. And then just a ton of different song lessons too. So much stuff going on there. And then, like I said, if you have any questions, let me know. I'll talk to y'all soon.